Hello YouTubers, I've got a 2004 Mercedes ML350 here. It's probably more similar to a lot of the ML320s, the older ML320s. This is an inspiration model, so it basically has everything available in it. It was an opportunity purchase for me. It was described as having a transmission problem and saying that it had been diagnosed by a transmission shop as needing a solenoid in the transmission. I had a difficult time buying that explanation, but I did go take a look at it, and I test drove it, and everything drove perfect when I test drove it. And it had been sitting for a couple of years when I went to test drive it. We had jumped it and I took it for a drive. I even took it home and I even drove it for a little while before the problem appeared that he said he was having. And he said what he was having is he was having it was going into limp mode, it wouldn't shift, it had a loss of power, and what I came to find out was it was actually multiple problems that took place with it. And throughout working on this car, I've done a lot of searches online for a couple of the different problems that I've had, and I thought what I would do is, rather than share the repairs with you, because the repairs are very well available on YouTube, the different repairs that I did, but I thought I'd go through the troubleshooting that I did with it and then share you my solutions that I found. So to start with, what I found online is that it's very common for these. The transmission is a 722.6 5-speed electronically controlled automatic transmission that Mercedes use in a lot of vehicles. They're a pretty robust transmission, pretty solid, pretty strong transmissions that did have some electrical problems. One of the problems, more notably than anything else, is the conductor plate that I have here. This is easily available. You can find it in several different qualities online, have it shipped right to your house, fairly inexpensive. Can't remember exactly what the price was, but I bought it in the kit that came with the plug, and I'll talk a little bit about the plug, the filter, and the gasket. So it came with everything. Now, I did find several people saying that the solenoids in the transmission typically aren't a problem. It's typically the conductor plate. But here's another problem that they have had is this is the plug that goes to the electronic transmission control module, which is this right here. And what they would do is the original ones would leak and would actually force the transmission fluid up into the transmission control module. Now, a lot of people know that like your fuel pump, it sits in gas, but gas does not conduct electricity. Oil does conduct electricity. So when oil does get into a TCM, then it will actually do damage to the conductor plate. So the first thing I did is I ordered this stuff, and I found a place that had some reconditioned tested solenoids, and I bought the whole set. But I really was not thinking it was the solenoids. So what I initially did is I changed the transmission fluid, I pulled the valve body out, and I placed a conductor plate on that. Like I say, there's multiple videos available that you can watch that gives a pretty good explanation of it. And what I found about doing this job, it was a very simple job. This Mercedes is extremely easy to work on, and access to everything is real easy. Before you can take the valve body out, this plug does have to come out. There's a small screw on the inside there. It's either a 7 or 8 millimeter. I believe it's a 7 millimeter. And then I put it back together, and it doesn't come with a dipstick, so you have to kind of measure the fluid coming out of it, and the fluid go back into it. And I got just a little bit over 4 quarts is what I got in my measurement, so that's what I put back into it. I took it for a test drive. I had the same exact problem, and so the problem what I had was it would start out fine, and then it would not shift up in the second gear. Another thing that I noticed is that when you put it into gear, it would really bolt. It would just jerk on you really hard, and I hear that as a very common almost any time the electronic transmissions have a problem, that seems to be pretty symptomatic, is they don't shift up, and as you're putting them into gear, forward, reverse, or something, it's an extreme jolt. So I took it back apart, took the conductor plate off, and I replaced the solenoids with the ones I bought that were reconditioned. Put it back together, exact same thing, no change. So then I started suspecting the transmission control module. And this is the transmission control module, and so I wanted to see, has it had oil in it? You can kind of see there where I've taken it apart. You can pull it apart, and you can kind of inspect the conductor plate and the electronics board in there. And I could not see any trace of that at all. So it was very difficult for me to believe that that was the problem. But then I noticed something as I was working on that, and I want to show you this here. I'll show you the floorboard in this. I'll pull this floor mat out. Now, if you notice, right down there, there's some dark stains. And right above that is where that transmission control module is located. So I started thinking, this thing has had that problem in the past where the transmission control module did get oil into it. And it looks to me like somebody had resolved it. And it did look clean. I've seen a couple of videos where people had that problem. They've taken it apart, cleaned it, put it back together, and had it working. So now this became suspect. I looked up the number on it. I ordered the number off of eBay by the same number. I just ordered a used one. I believe it was $45. Shipped to my door. Plugged it in. Transmission working perfect at that point. Had not had another problem with the transmission. Shifting's great. I'm really happy with that. However, while I was test driving it, check engine light came on again, and that's when it came on flashing, and had a loss of power. It dropped down to several cylinders, but the transmission was working. And so I'm wondering, is there something still wrong? Is there something still wrong electrically? But it was actually a separate problem, and I kind of went for the low-hanging fruit. These are coil packs, and I decided just to do a complete tune-up on it because you could order the coil packs, complete set of coil packs and spark plug wires all in one. And I just didn't feel right about replacing all of those without putting a full set of plugs in it. Now, for every cylinder, there's 2 spark plugs and 2 spark plug wires, and each coil has an A and B. And as I'm pulling the plugs out, my father always taught me to inspect them and see if they're wet, see if they're dry, look at the color of them. He's always told me chocolatey brown was the best color. And they're not too far off of that. They're actually a little bit lighter than that. You can see a couple of electrodes are pretty dark. But for the most part, what you see is kind of a lean run condition. And a lean run condition will actually cause a misfire. So even after doing all that, I still had the random misfire code that kept coming up on my when I'd scan it. And but what it was doing, and I'm going to explain these symptoms to you, is it would run great. And as long as I drive it around, just drive it normal. But as soon as I get out on the highway and I accelerate and I'd go up over 3,000 RPMs, it was almost like that 3,000 RPM was a magical number. As soon as I hit that, check engine light would start flashing. And then it would go solid. And in some cases, all 6 cylinders were still hitting. In some cases, it would drop a few of the cylinders. If I was to shut the key off, fire it right back up, all the cylinders would be back, but the check engine light would still be on. So as I start reviewing a lot of the posts, and I find that there's multiple other issues that could be involved with it. Vacuum leak, EGR, fuel pressure, so a bad fuel pump, maybe even a plugged fuel filter, multiple things along that line. Now I'm pretty confident the electronics, the coils, spark plug wires, spark plugs, they're all gapped correctly when I put it in. So I've ruled those out, and yes, I'm throwing money at it, as, you know, with a lot of guesses. But however, with 160,000 miles on this, which they have a reputation for lasting a long time, I felt it was a good measure to go ahead and do that, even though it looked like somebody had changed the plugs not too long before me. So I just felt it was a good measure. I believe these are the original coil packs, and they are prone to giving you trouble after driving them quite a bit. So first thing I checked was when it wasn't that, was I was looking for vacuum leaks. Unable to find vacuum leaks. I did a smoke test on the engine. I didn't get any smoke from vacuum leaks. I also tested my fuel pressure. My fuel pressure was good. Did not have a significant drop upon the rev, which I expected that to be the problem, because the acceleration going up to 3,000 RPM under an acceleration is when it would pull the random misfire code. I think it's PO300. And so what I started doing is I just started looking at different places on the motor, and what I found, if I find it here someplace, well, I don't see the piece, but oh, here it is right here. This is a small vacuum line, and you can see it's got cracks in it. And you wouldn't think that'd be enough to cause these kind of problems that I was having with it. Very, 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 very small cracks. But I'll explain to you how come that one vacuum line caused me problems. Is right here. This goes over and assist in operating the variable intake. And if the intake is not working correctly, then you're going to get a lean run issue, and that was causing my misfire. So basically, and I need to replace this hose, but because you can still see there's cracking in it, and there's possibly still leaking going on. But I cut it off shorter and plugged it back in, and that solved my problem. Now I get no check engine light. It's got good acceleration, no misfire. Transmission is working good. So what I wanted to do is I just wanted to do a quick video and share all of this with you. All of these things were real easy to do, and lots of videos available, but maybe not all of these symptoms that I was talking about is available to find. Hopefully it helps somebody else. Thank you.